Nerida, what cities are hot at the moment?
Look, it's certainly surprising that we are now seeing an increase in investor activity. They have been won by a group that we haven't seen much activity pretty much since the COVID pandemic began. The area is seeing big increases. No surprises, Canberra, Perth are two of the top performers. They have come through COVID particularly positively, but also regional Australia. When we have a look at what's been happening with inquiry levels in regional Australia, regional New South Wales is an area that is doing particularly well, but we've even seen regional South Australia do well too. So some surprises there, but certainly a lot of strength now coming through from investors.
I want to talk about regional Australia in a moment, but first, Sydney and Melbourne are also showing signs of strength. The lockdown in Melbourne didn't put investors off?
Look, it certainly didn't. I mean, when we have a look at what's happened with investor activity during the pandemic, from looking at Melbourne and also Sydney, they were the two cities that were most impacted over the recession and pretty much leading up to the end of the year. We have now seen an increase in both those areas. It is the first month. December is the first month that we have seen a year-on-year increase. It is surprising because if we have a look at December last year, we were seeing very high levels of investor activity, primarily because the Financial Services Royal Commission had come to an end, and we were starting to see investors re-enter the market. One area that a lot of investors are looking at the moment is Melbourne CBD Melbourne CBD residential apartment market, and this again is surprising because what we've seen in that market is very high vacancy rates. We have seen drops in rents, in many cases drops in value. So it is likely a lot of counter-cyclical investors are really trying to get into that market before prices start to shoot up again.
And it's expected that investor activity will continue to accelerate this year. Why is that?
Yeah, look, it is likely. I mean, one of the things that does lead to high levels of investor activity is price growth, and we have now seen pretty much all of Australia return to price growth again. So that's something that does get them back into the market. Added to that, we do have very low interest rates at the moment. We've got an easing in access to finance, which is helping a lot of investors as well. So there's a lot of things that are taking place which are leading to investor activity returning. But probably the number one thing is that the market is returning to growth, and there is a lot of positivity out there.
Well, that's some good signs. Auction activity is also starting to heat up more quickly compared to this time last year. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Look, we had some very, very strong levels of auction activity at the end of December, and it was actually the highest level we'd ever recorded. So a lot of activity that didn't take place during the year, it came to a head when we headed into late December. What we are seeing this weekend, we're seeing 30 auctions. Doesn't sound like a lot, but generally we only see a couple of auctions taking place in the early weeks of January. So 30 auctions taking place, but really the big week will be the week after the Australia Day holiday. That's generally really the kickstart of the year, and already we are seeing high levels of auctions being scheduled for that time period. But over coming weeks, we should see that increase as well.
And in regional Australia, you mentioned South Australia, and as well, I believe Byron Bay has been a popular one to buy.
Yeah, look, Byron Bay does continue. I mean, it's quite interesting looking at the most viewed auction taking place this weekend. Actually, the most viewed auction taking place is actually in the suburb of Boronia in eastern Melbourne. So a really nice family home, expected to go for around 780 to 800,000. But what is surprising that the most viewed property in regional Australia is one in Bangalore, and that's expected to achieve about 1.4 million, which is astounding when you have a look at the property. It's a 2-bedroom, 1 bathroom, no car park, a fairly modest property, but really showing the strength of that market at the moment.
Yeah, it's a beautiful part of the world. And finally, any tips for buying in 2021?
Yeah, look, the market does seem to be moving pretty quickly. So at the moment, is leading to a little bit of stock shortage. We are expecting to see more stock into the market, primarily because conditions are starting to get better. I think if you are looking to get a loan, it is starting to ease up, so that's good news. And also those interest rates are incredibly low, so the mortgage rates now are at the lowest level ever recorded. It's possible to get a mortgage rate under 2% at the moment. So, in terms of borrowing, some really good news. In terms of stock levels, we do expect stock levels to start to increase during the year.
Good to see things are looking up. Nerida, Conisbee, thank you so much for joining me this morning.
Thanks for having me.